The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as my mother's hand connected with my face. In front of 300 guests at my own wedding reception, she screamed that I was a disgrace to our family name. The sound echoed through the ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel like a gunshot, and every conversation, every laugh, every clink of silverware stopped instantly. My name is Brenna Whitmore, or I should say Brenna Rothschild now. I'm 28 years old, and until 6 hours ago, I was the black sheep of one of Boston's oldest families. You know the type. Ancestors on the Mayflower, buildings at Harvard with our name on them, and a family trust that's been generating wealth since before the Civil War. My mother, Cordelia Whitmore, has spent her entire 55 years on this earth maintaining that legacy with an iron fist wrapped in designer gloves. She stood there in her custom Valentino gown, her perfectly manicured hand still raised from the slap, her face twisted with a rage I'd never seen before, not even when I dropped out of her alma mater to finish my degree at a state school, not even when I took a job at a startup instead of joining the family investment firm. "You've destroyed everything," she shrieked, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "Everything our family built for generations thrown away for this nobody, this mechanic." The man she was screaming about, my new husband Ronan, stood 10 feet away, 30 years old with rough hands that had held me through every moment of my mother's cruelty over the past year. He wore his tuxedo like he was born in it, though Mother had spent months mocking him for not knowing the difference between a salad fork and a dinner fork. His dark eyes watched her with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not anger, not hurt, something else entirely. My father, Theodore Whitmore, sat at the head table, his scotch frozen halfway to his lips. In all my 28 years, I'd never seen him stand up to Mother, and tonight was no exception. He just sat there in his custom Brooks Brothers tuxedo, looking like he wanted to disappear into the elaborate floral centerpiece in front of him. At 58, he'd learned that silence was easier than confrontation when it came to his wife. My younger sister Avalon was already on her feet, her perfect political smile cracking at the edges. At 26, she was everything Mother wanted in a daughter. She'd married Harrison Blackwood, a state senator's son with presidential ambitions, in a wedding that made the society pages of the New York Times. She'd done everything right, followed every rule, and now she stood there in her maid of honor dress, looking between Mother and me like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. "Cordelia, please," my Aunt Patricia whispered from table 3, but Mother was beyond reasoning. 300 people, Mother continued, gesturing wildly at the assembled guests. 300 of the most important people in Boston, and you parade this blue-collar nobody in front of them like he's something to be proud of. I touched my lip and felt the warm, sticky sensation of blood. The diamond bracelet Ronan had given me that morning caught the light as I raised my hand, sending tiny rainbows across the shocked faces of our guests. My wedding dress, a simple but elegant Vera Wang that I'd bought myself without Mother's help, now had tiny spots of red on the bodice. "Mrs. Whitmore," Ronan said, his voice cutting through the ballroom with a quiet authority that made everyone turn. "I think you should sit down." Mother laughed. Actually laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. "You don't get to tell me what to do in front of my friends, my family, my social circle. You're nothing. A nobody who fixes cars and probably lives in some pathetic apartment above his garage." That's when I noticed them. 4 men in impeccable suits who I'd assumed were wedding guests had moved closer, positioning themselves strategically around the dance floor. They weren't looking at the spectacle of my mother's breakdown. They were watching Ronan, waiting for something. "Mother," I said, my voice steady despite the throbbing in my cheek, "there's something you should know about my husband." She whirled on me, her eyes blazing. "I know everything I need to know. He's beneath us, and you're too stupid and rebellious to see it." The room gasped collectively. Even Harrison, who'd built his entire political career on maintaining composure, looked shocked. But when I wiped the blood from my lip and revealed exactly who I'd married, my mother's face went from triumph to terror in 3 seconds flat. 6 months before the wedding, I was the black sheep of the Whitmore family, and I wore that title like armor. While my sister Avalon hosted charity galas with her politician husband in their Beacon Hill mansion, I was working 60-hour weeks at a sustainable energy startup in Cambridge, determined to make my own way in the world. My corner office was tiny, my salary was modest, and I loved every minute of it. My mother called me daily with what she termed opportunities. Every call followed the same script. She'd start with false concern about my well-being, transition into criticism of my life choices, and end with an attempt to set me up with someone from her approved list of potential husbands. "Brenna, darling," she said during one particularly memorable call, "the Pemberton boy just got promoted to partner at Goldman Sachs. His mother and I play tennis every Tuesday. I could arrange a dinner this weekend." "Mother, I'm not interested in the Pemberton boy. His name is Charles, and he drives a Bentley." "Good for Charles. I hope he and his Bentley are very happy together." She'd sighed dramatically. "You're 28, Brenna. Your prime years are slipping away. Avalon was already married at your age." Avalon also cries in the bathroom at every family dinner, but sure, let's use her as the gold standard. The day I met Ronan, my Mercedes had died in the middle of Commonwealth Avenue during rush hour. I was standing there in my business suit and heels watching smoke pour from under the hood when a beat-up truck pulled over. The door opened and out stepped this man in worn jeans and a work shirt with Ronan stitched on the pocket. "Looks like you could use some help," he said, giving me this crooked smile that somehow made the whole disaster seem less catastrophic. "Unless you have a magic wand, I think this car is done for." He laughed, already popping the hood. "No magic wand, but I do own a shop 2 blocks away. This is probably your fuel pump. See how the smoke is white, not black? That's coolant burning, which means your engine overheated when the fuel pump failed and you kept trying to start it." "How do you know I kept trying to start it?" "Because that's what everyone does when their car dies. We all think maybe if we just turn the key one more time, it'll magically work." He was right, of course. I'd turned that key at least 15 times before giving up. "Let me give you a ride to my shop," he offered. "We can call a tow truck from there, and I'll get you sorted out." I should have been suspicious of a stranger offering help, but something about him felt safe. Maybe it was the way he looked directly at me when he talked, or how he stood a respectful distance away, or the fact that 3 other cars had passed without stopping, while he immediately pulled over. His shop turned out to be a pristine operation with 6 bays and a waiting room nicer than most doctors' offices. He made me coffee while we waited for the tow truck, and we talked about everything except cars. He'd traveled through Southeast Asia after high school, loved obscure documentaries, and could quote entire passages from books I'd never heard anyone else mention. "You're not what I expected from a mechanic," I admitted. "You're not what I expected from someone who drives a Mercedes," he countered. "What did you expect?" "Someone who'd be on their phone the whole time, complaining about the inconvenience and demanding I fix it faster." "And what did you get instead?" "Someone who asked about the books on my shelf and actually listened to my explanation about fuel pumps." We had our first date 3 days later at a hole-in-the-wall Thai place he promised had the best pad Thai in Boston. He was right about that, too. For 3 months, I kept Ronan a secret, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to protect what we had from my mother's poison. We explored the city together, finding hidden bookstores and forgotten parks. He taught me to change my own oil, and I introduced him to obscure indie bands. He fixed things with his hands while I fixed problems with spreadsheets, and somehow we just fit. When I finally couldn't hide it anymore and brought him to Sunday dinner at my parents' estate in Wellesley, I watched my family size him up like wolves evaluating prey. Mother's face had gone pale when he walked in, taking in his clean but simple button-down shirt and khakis that clearly came from Target, not Nordstrom. The dinner was excruciating. Mother kept making pointed comments about successful young men in our social circle, while Father buried himself in his wine glass. Avalon's husband, Harrison, spent the entire meal talking about his political connections, obviously trying to make Ronan feel small. But Ronan never flinched. He answered every condescending question with grace, complimented Mother's interior, decorating with genuine appreciation, and even managed to get Father talking about vintage cars, the only topic that could animate him. The engagement announcement was a disaster that I should have seen coming, but somehow didn't. I'd gathered my courage for a week before driving to my parents' estate on a Thursday afternoon, knowing Mother would be home from her ladies' auxiliary meeting and properly fortified with her afternoon gin and tonic. I found her in the sunroom, arranging white orchids in a Waterford vase that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Mother, I have something to tell you," I said, holding out my left hand where Ronan's ring caught the afternoon light. She actually laughed, not a polite chuckle or even a sarcastic snort, but a full, genuine laugh like I'd just told the funniest joke she'd heard all year. She set down her pruning shears and walked over, taking my hand to examine the ring with the same expression someone might use when looking at a child's macaroni art. "This is a joke, right? Some sort of statement about rejecting materialism?" "It's an engagement ring, Mother. Ronan proposed last night." The laughter stopped immediately. "That mechanic? You're going to marry that mechanic?" "His name is Ronan, and yes, I'm going to marry him." She dropped my hand like it was contaminated and walked to the bar, pouring herself another gin with shaking fingers. "This is rebellion, Brenna. You're doing this to hurt me, to embarrass the family name. Not everything is about you, Mother. I love him." "Love?" She turned around, her face flushed with anger. "You think love matters? Love doesn't pay for country club memberships or private schools for your future children. Love doesn't maintain our standing in society." "Maybe I don't care about standing in your society." The glass in her hand trembled. "Cancel this engagement immediately, or you're out of the will. I'll cut you off completely. No trust fund, no inheritance, nothing." Father had walked in during this pronouncement, his golf clothes indicating he'd just come from the course. He looked between us, understood the situation immediately, and did what he always did. Walked to the bar and poured himself a brandy without saying a word. "Theodore, tell your daughter she's being ridiculous," Mother commanded. He studied his brandy with the intensity of a sommelier evaluating wine. "Cordelia, perhaps we should discuss this calmly." "There's nothing to discuss. She's throwing her life away for some grease monkey who probably lives paycheck to paycheck." I left that day with Mother's threats ringing in my ears and Father's silence speaking volumes. Avalon texted me that night. "She's serious about the will. I heard her on the phone with the family lawyer. Choose carefully." The wedding planning became an all-out war. Mother refused to help with anything, wouldn't share her vendor contacts, and actively sabotaged my efforts. She'd call venues after I'd visited and tell them the wedding was canceled. She showed up at my dress fitting at Vera Wang and told the consultant that she wouldn't be paying for anything, loud enough for every bride in the store to hear. "Your daughter has chosen to marry beneath her station," she announced to the room. "I cannot support such a poor decision." The consultant, a young woman named Priya, had waited until Mother left before approaching me. "That dress looks perfect on you," she said, quietly. "And for what it's worth, the best marriages I've seen have nothing to do with station." Ronan watched all of this with a strange calm that sometimes unsettled me. When I came home crying after Mother had convinced 3 caterers to mysteriously become unavailable for our date, he just held me and said, "Let her have her tantrum. The truth has a way of coming out." "What truth?" I asked, pulling back to look at him. He smoothed my hair back from my face. "That she can't control everything no matter how much money she has." 2 weeks before the wedding, Mother made her final play. She arrived at my apartment unannounced at 7 in the morning, wearing her full armor of Chanel and carrying a leather folder that looked official and ominous. "These are legal documents," she said, spreading them on my kitchen counter. "Sign them, annul this engagement, and marry the Ashford boy, Frederick Ashford. He's willing to overlook this embarrassment, and his family owns half of Connecticut. Frederick Ashford is 43 years old and has been divorced 3 times. He's also worth $800 million. Get out of my apartment." She gathered her documents with the precision of a general planning a retreat. "You'll regret this, Brenna. When you're living in some trailer park while your husband fixes cars for pennies, when your children grow up shopping at Walmart instead of Bergdorf's, remember that you chose this. I'd rather shop at Walmart with Ronan than sell my soul for a Bergdorf's card." She paused at the door, her final words delivered with icy precision. You're no longer my daughter. Don't expect me to pretend otherwise at this farce of a wedding." The morning of my wedding, I woke up in the bridal suite of the Fairmont Hotel to find Ronan sitting in the armchair by the window, fully dressed in his tuxedo at 6 in the morning. This was completely against tradition since we weren't supposed to see each other before the ceremony, but the look on his face told me tradition was the least of our concerns. "We need to talk," he said, setting down his coffee cup with unusual precision. "About your mother." "Please, not today. Whatever she's done now, I don't want to know until after the honeymoon." "She hired a private investigator. Actually, she hired 3 of them." My stomach dropped. I sat up in bed, pulling the hotel robe tighter around me. "What are you talking about?" Ronan pulled out his phone and showed me a series of photos. Men in suits following his truck. The same men sitting in cars outside his shop. One even showed a man photographing us through the window of a restaurant during one of our dates. "They've been following me for 2 months," he said calmly. "Your mother wanted dirt on me. Criminal records, other women, debts, anything she could use to break us up." "Oh my God, Ronan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd go this far." He moved to sit beside me on the bed, taking my hands in his. "Brenna, I need you to listen carefully. Your mother thinks she knows who I am now. These investigators gave her a report that says I'm exactly what she thinks, a working-class nobody with a small repair shop and a modest apartment." "But that's true, isn't it? I mean, not the nobody part, but the rest?" He smiled, that same crooked smile from the day we met. "She only found what I wanted her to find. The investigators work for my family's security firm, have for years." My brain struggled to process this. "Your family has a security firm?" "Among other things. Brenna, I haven't lied to you. I do work on cars, I do own that shop, but there are some things about my family that I couldn't tell you until I was sure you loved me for me, not for anything else. You're scaring me." Your mother is about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging people based on their appearance and occupation. The question is, are you okay with that? Because once this comes out, there's no going back. Your mother will be humiliated in front of everyone she's ever tried to impress. I thought about every cruel word she'd spoken, every attempt to control my life, every time she'd made me feel worthless for not fitting her perfect mold. I thought about her trying to bribe venues to cancel our booking, about her calling Ronan a grease monkey to anyone who would listen, about her showing up at my apartment with legal documents and the threat of disownment. "What exactly are we talking about here?" I asked. "Justice," he said simply. "Not revenge, just truth. Your mother has spent months telling everyone that you're marrying beneath yourself. Today she learns how wrong she was." "And your family? You said they weren't coming." "That was before I knew about the private investigators and the full extent of your mother's campaign against us. My grandmother is particularly interested in meeting the woman who called her grandson, and I quote from the investigators' recording, a pathetic nobody who probably doesn't even have a savings account. Your mother said that to her bridge club last week. We have it on tape." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Boston waking up below us. The city looked peaceful, unaware of the storm about to hit the Whitmore family. "My whole life," I said quietly, "she's controlled everything through fear and money. When I was 16, she pulled me out of public school because I made friends with a girl whose father was a plumber. When I dated a guy in college whose parents were teachers, she had the dean reassign my dorm room to separate us. Every single time I've tried to be myself, she's crushed it with her money and her connections. And now I want her to understand what it feels like to be judged and found wanting." Ronan stood and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "There's going to be a moment today when everything changes. Your mother will probably do something dramatic. She's been drinking more, according to the security reports. The pressure of the wedding she tried to stop is getting to her. Let her do whatever she wants. I'm done being afraid of her." "That's my girl." He kissed the top of my head. "Oh, and Brenna. My family's security detail will be there, dressed as guests. If your mother gets physical, which our profiler says is a possibility, they'll intervene. She would never do something like that in public. Yesterday, she told her hairdresser that she'd rather see you dead than married to me. We have that on tape, too." The weight of my mother's hatred suddenly felt crushing. She really despises him that much? She despises what she thinks I represent, but after today she'll understand that her entire worldview is built on sand. The slap happened during the father-daughter dance, right as the band was playing "The Way You Look Tonight." Well, Father had actually been smiling, telling me quietly that I looked beautiful, and that maybe he'd been wrong about Ronan. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from him, and for a moment, I thought maybe things could heal between us all. Then Mother appeared at the edge of the dance floor, her sixth martini sloshing in her hand. Her face was flushed, her carefully styled hair beginning to escape its pins, and her eyes held a wildness I'd never seen before. She stormed straight toward us, her Valentino gown rustling like an approaching storm. "Get away from her, Theodore," she hissed, yanking Father's arm so hard he stumbled. "Cordelia, please, people are watching," Father said weakly. "Good, let them watch. Let them see what our daughter has become." Her hand connected with my cheek with enough force to spin me around. The crack echoed through the ballroom like a whip. The band stopped mid-note. 300 guests turned in unison, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips, conversations dying instantly. "You're a disgrace!" she screamed, her voice raw and ugly. "Marrying beneath us. This blue-collar nobody. This mechanic who probably doesn't even own a suit that wasn't rented." I touched my lip and felt the warm flow of blood where her wedding ring had cut me. The metallic taste filled my mouth as I straightened, facing her with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. "You think you've won?" she continued, gesturing wildly at the assembled crowd. "You think this pathetic man can give you anything close to what you deserve? You're trash now, Brenna. Common trash. You'll be living in some apartment above his garage, clipping coupons, shopping at discount stores." Harrison, Avalon's husband, started moving toward us, probably thinking about how this would play in tomorrow's society pages, but Avalon grabbed his arm, holding him back. She knew something was about to happen, sister's intuition perhaps. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the waitstaff had frozen, trays of champagne suspended in mid-air. My mother stood there, chest heaving, looking triumphant, as if she'd finally said what everyone was thinking. "Mother," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom, "I'd like you to meet your son-in-law properly. His full name is Ronan Nathaniel Rothschild, the fourth." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "That's impossible." "Rothschild," someone whispered from table 7. "The Rothschild automotive family?" Ronan stepped forward, and as he did, 4 men in exquisite suits moved with him, positioning themselves strategically around us. They'd been sitting at different tables all evening, blending in perfectly with the other guests, but now their true purpose was clear. "Mrs. Whitmore," Ronan said, his voice pleasant but carrying an edge of steel. "I'm the heir to the Rothschild automotive empire. We own Bentley, Bugatti, and Lamborghini, among others. We have controlling interests in 6 luxury car brands and operate 847 high-end repair facilities across North America." "But you work in a garage," Mother stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "I was working undercover at the shop where I met Brenna, learning the business from the ground up. It's a tradition in our family. My grandfather started the same way, my father too. We believe in understanding every aspect of our empire." An elderly woman approached from table 2, her movement graceful despite her age. She wore a necklace of diamonds that caught the light like captured stars, and everyone seemed to recognize her except my mother, who was too sheltered in her Boston society bubble to know true international wealth. "You must be Cordelia," the woman said, her accent crisp and distinctly European. "I'm Vivienne Rothschild, Ronan's grandmother. I understand you've been calling my grandson a grease monkey and a pathetic nobody." Mother's mouth opened and closed without sound. "The private investigators you hired?" Ronan continued, pulling out his phone. "They work for our security division. We have recordings of every threat you made, every bribe you offered to vendors, every cruel word you spoke about this union. Our lawyers particularly enjoyed the recording where you offered the Fairmont's event coordinator $50,000 to accidentally double-book this ballroom." "I want to hear it," Vivian said coldly. "Play the recording where she says my grandson probably doesn't have a savings account." Ronan touched his phone screen, and my mother's voice filled the ballroom from the speakers. That pathetic nobody probably doesn't even have a savings account. He'll drain Brenna's trust fund in a year. Mark my words. Trash always reveals itself. The gasps from the crowd were audible. Mrs. Henderson from the country club actually dropped her clutch. Judge Patterson, who'd known my family for 40 years, shook his head in disgust. Our family's net worth, Vivian announced to the room, is approximately $18 billion. We could buy the entire Whitmore family legacy with what we consider pocket change. Mother hasn't spoken to me in 6 months, and that silence has been the most peaceful gift I've ever received. The social pages had a field day with the story when it broke. Boston socialite slaps daughter for marrying secret billionaire ran in every paper from here to Los Angeles. The security footage, which somehow leaked to the media despite our best efforts to keep it private, went viral on social media. 3 million views in 2 days. Mother became a cautionary tale, a meme, a punchline at every charity luncheon and country club gathering she used to rule. She tried damage control at first, hired a PR firm to spin the story, claimed she'd been protecting me from what she thought was a fortune hunter. But when Vivian Rothschild gave an exclusive interview to Vanity Fair, detailing every cruel thing Mother had said and done, including the attempted bribery of our wedding vendors, there was no recovering. The Whitmore name, which Mother had spent her entire life polishing, became toxic overnight. Father divorced her 3 months after the wedding. He'd been meeting with lawyers secretly, it turned out, building his case for years. The public humiliation was just the final push he needed. He sent me a letter last month that I've read so many times I've memorized it. Brenna, I should have stood up for you years ago. I should have been the father you deserved instead of the coward who chose silence over conflict. Ronan is a good man, not because of his money, but because of how he protected you while letting your mother destroy herself with her own cruelty. Be happy, sweetheart. You've earned it. Avalon's perfect life crumbled too. Harrison, her politician husband, couldn't handle the scandal. His advisors told him the connection to our family was political poison, and he filed for separation 2 months after our wedding. She called me crying one night, admitting what I'd always suspected. Their marriage had been a business arrangement, approved and orchestrated by Mother. You were right, she said through her tears. About everything. About Mother. About following my own heart. About the price of a loveless marriage. I'm 26, and I've never made a single decision for myself. She's living in a small apartment in Cambridge now, working as a junior editor at a publishing house. It's the first job she's ever gotten on her own merit, without Mother pulling strings. We have coffee every Tuesday, and slowly, we're becoming the sisters we never got to be under Mother's reign. Last week, we got a letter from Mother sent through her lawyer. 1 line on expensive stationery. I was wrong. Ronan read it at breakfast, smiled, and tossed it in the fireplace. Too little? Too late? Should we forgive her? I asked, watching the paper curl and blacken in the flames. That's up to you, love. But remember something important. She only apologized after learning about the money. She slapped you when she thought you were marrying beneath you. She was willing to disown you, humiliate you, destroy your happiness because she thought I was poor. What does that tell you about her values? About her love for you? He was right, of course. Mother's apology wasn't about remorse for hurting me. It was about trying to gain access to the Rothschild fortune and status. I'm 7 months pregnant now with twins. We're naming them after Ronan's parents, James and Isabella, who died in a car accident when he was 12, leaving him to be raised by his grandmother, Vivian. She taught him that respect is earned through actions, not inherited through bloodlines. That's why he was working in that shop, learning the business from the ground up, understanding what it meant to work with his hands before he ever sat in a boardroom. We lived simply despite the fortune. We bought a brownstone in Cambridge. Nothing ostentatious, just beautiful and warm. Ronan still works on cars sometimes, but now it's teaching underprivileged kids in our foundation's automotive program. Every Saturday, he's there in his old work clothes, showing teenagers how to change oil, fix engines, and maybe change their lives. Mother will never meet our children. That's not cruelty, it's protection. Some people show you exactly who they are, and when they do, believe them. She showed me that her love was conditional. based on status and wealth and appearances. That's not love at all. The slap that was meant to humiliate me freed me instead. It showed everyone who Cordelia Whitmore really was beneath her designer dresses and perfect parties. And it showed me that the best revenge isn't anger or retribution. It's living well with someone who loved you when he thought you had nothing to offer but yourself. That's worth more than all the Rothschild billions combined. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that true love sees beyond bank accounts and social status. Comment below if you've ever had to stand up to family pressure about who you should love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about triumph, truth, and the moments that change everything.